I'm sure we've all heard this saying before, with great power comes with great power creep, and that is exactly what happened to Blade. Mydei's gameplay is basically Blade's but without free will, fits into the category of all men being imaginary, and it seems like he's going to be the MVP of the entirety of the 3.0 patch and onwards. Now for the big question, is he worth pulling? That's a good question to ask, because in this guide video, I'll be going over his kit, relics stats, Eidolons, Lightcones, team comps, and finally, my opinion on pulling for him. Enough yapping, let's start the video. Not gonna lie, but Mydei's basic attack isn't anything special, but here's a quick rundown on it anyway. Mydei's basic attack deals 50% imaginary damage equal to his 50% max HP to one designated enemy, but you'll rarely find yourself using this ability unless you need to generate skill points and building up stacks for his talent. Make sure to stick around because the rest of his kit is fantastic.
Say that again?
The rest of his kit is fantastic. Each 1% HP lost, Mydei's talent accumulates 1 point of charge. You're able to recognize how many points you have available to you from the numbers next to his icon. The next part I'm about to explain is based on how many stacks he has built up. When charge reaches 100 points, Mydei consumes those 100 points to enter the Vendetta state. When Mydei enters the state, he restores HP equal to 25 of his max HP, and this action is advanced by 100%. While Mydei's Vendetta state is active, his HP is increased by 50% of his current max HP, while his defense remains at 0. Remember when I said at the beginning that Mydei's gameplay is like Blade's but without the free will? This is the part where he has no free will. While Mydei is in his Vendetta state, he plays for you, like how auto battles play for you. At the start of his turn, he automatically launches an AoE attack, Kingslayer Be King, that consumes 35% of his current HP to deal imaginary damage equal to 110% of his max HP to a primary target and 66% to any adjacent targets. This would carry on until he reaches 150 points of charge, but instead the damage he deals is much more devastating. His new skill, Godslayer Be God, deals damage equal to 280% of his max HP to a primary target and 168% to any adjacent targets. This skill is automatically activated and you cannot gain charge from this ability. However, it is possible to reach over 150 points. Also, fear not dying on Mydei, because when he receives a killing blow, he won't be knocked out. Instead, his points are cleared and he exits the Vendetta state to restore 50% of his HP. Also, just gonna point out, Mydei's regular skill outside his Vendetta state consumes 50% of his current HP to deal imaginary damage equal to 90% of his max HP to one primary target and 50% to adjacent targets. With that out of the way, let's talk about Mydei's ultimate. Mydei's ultimate restores 20% of his max HP and accumulates 20 points for his talent's charge. He also launches an AoE attack that deals imaginary damage equal to 160% of his max HP to one primary target, while adjacent targets receive 100% imaginary damage. That's equal to Mydei's max HP. Mydei also taunts the targets that were attacked, meaning they can only target him and only him for 2 turns. The next use of Godslayer Be God also prioritizes attacking one designated enemy, and this effect will only work on the latest target. Before I go over his traces, casting Mydei's technique pulls enemies within a certain area and dazes them for 10 seconds, leaving them unable to actively attack allies. If actively attacking dazed enemies when entering battle, Mydei deals imaginary damage equal to 80% of his max HP to all enemies, taunts the targets for 1 turn, and accumulates 50 points for his talent's charge. Mydei's A2 trace makes Mydei too angry to die, meaning Mydei won't be knocked out of his Vendetta state when he receives a killing blow from an enemy. However, this effect lasts up to 3 times per battle. Per battle meaning it could only happen 3 times in that battle. His A4 trace makes Mydei too angry to be CC'd. While he is in the Vendetta state, any crowd control debuff has no effect on him. Finally, for his A6 trace, which is pretty interesting, if Mydei's HP exceeds 4000, every 100 HP points increases Mydei's crit rate by 1.2%. His charge ratio from enemy targets damage increases by 2.5%, and his incoming healing increases by 0.75. I have no idea what Hoya were doing, but he is truly what Blade could have been. Oh my god, please don't be next. please don't be next. The minor traits Mydei receives is a hefty 37% crit damage boost, 80% HP boost, and 5 speed. Although Mydei has a bunch of good options to choose from, I'm only going to recommend 2 of the following relics, and I never thought I'd be saying this for another DPS besides Blade. Longevous Disciple is going to be his best and one of the 2 options I recommend. So get ready to strip Blade from his relics and equipping it to Mydei. The set increases the wearer's max HP by 12%, which is something you obviously need for his A6 trace. Whenever the target is hit or has their HP consumed by an ally or themselves, their crit rate is increased by 8% for 2 turns, granting 16% crit rate altogether. Scholar Lost in Erudition is another fantastic option worth using, and I imagine that some people should be stacked up on those pieces since it is the most farm efficient domain as of right now. That and every other character from the last few patches demands this set for some reason. The Relic set gives the wearer 8% crit rate and a 20% damage increase for his skill and ultimate. Mydei can deal an additional 25% damage with his skill after casting ultimate. To put it into perspective, Sunday or Bronyo drags Mydei up after his ultimate. He'll be dealing more damage to enable you to clear content. For planar sets, Bone Collection Serene is going to be Mydei's best planar set. His max HP is increased by 12%, which is a primary stat you want on Mydei anyway. On top of that, once his HP hits 5000 or higher, Mydei receives 25% crit damage. I definitely recommend farming this set if you haven't already. He already needs 5000 HP and above for other parts in his kit, such as his A6 trace. It also grants him a max HP increase, and as we already learned, Mydei's damage scales with his HP. Rutilant Arena is an okay choice. The planar set increases his skill damage. He also doesn't need that much crit rate, but you receive 8% crit rate anyway. I'm only mentioning this set as a potential alternative if you happen to have bad substats on your other pieces. For main stats, you want crit damage or HP on your body piece. For your boots, you want HP or speed boots, depends if you have 8000 or not. Imaginary damage on your orb or HP. And lastly, you want a HP rope. Here's a bunch of extra details that I'll leave up for a few seconds for you to note down. When Mydei is in his Vendetta state and launches Godslayer Be God to the primary target receives 30% increased damage. But this isn't the best part about his E1. By pulling for his E1, you're allowing Mydei to deal damage of the same amount to the primary target to all enemies currently on the field. To put it into perspective, Mydei's Vendetta state puts you on auto battle, so you can't really choose your primary target, making it a lot more harder to get his maximum damage off. However, his E1 ensures that every enemy on the field receive the same amount of damage equally from his Godslayer skill. Mydei's E2 takes this a step further by enabling him to ignore 15% of the enemy's defense during his Vendetta state. On top of that, any healing that Mydei receives converts 40% of the healing into charge points for his talent, which simply enables him to use his Godslayer skill more often. Bear in mind, this is after his E1. Again, the first 2 Eidolons offer insane value for his damage, especially his E1 since it solves the problem of him being an auto battle unit. Now for the rest of Mydei's Eidolons, we'll quickly go over them. Mydei's E4, while he's in the Vendetta state, his crit damage is increased by 30% and restores 10% HP after receiving hits from enemy targets. This is another buff from his E2 since the healing he now receives is converted into points for his talent. Now listen up, listen well, and most importantly, listen carefully. His E6 is actually crazy considering how much damage he's already dealing, but I think that should be expected from E6 units, not gonna lie to you. When Mydei enters battle, he immediately enters the Vendetta state and lowers the amount needed for his Godslayer skill by 100 points. Obviously, this one's a bit crazy since Mydei now only needs 50 points to use this skill. To put it into perspective, you get points from attacking the enemies, being attacked by enemies, and receiving healing from teammates thanks to his E2. On top of that, thanks to his E6, it lowers the requirement for his Godslayer Be God skill by 100 points, so you'll pretty much be using Godslayer Be God pretty much all the time. And thanks to his E1, every enemy on the field would now take 30% more damage and the exact damage received from the primary target. Alright, I'm not gonna say any more about the unit, but man, he's insane. He is definitely worth pulling. With that being said, let's look at Mydei's Lightcones. Obviously, Into the Unreachable Veil is going to be Mydei's best light, and I'd highly recommend pulling for this Lightcone before his Eidolons. The Lightcone increases the wearer's max max HP by 18% and incoming healing by 20%. The wearer also consumes 6% of their max HP to gain 30% increased damage when they cast skill or ultimate. If the wearer's HP happens to be 500 or higher, they'll gain another 30% damage increase. If the wearer's HP happens to be 500 or higher, they'll gain another 30% damage increase. However, if the current HP they have is not sufficient, this effect reduces the wearer's HP down to a minimum of 1. Just a reminder to pull for this Lightcone first before his Eidolons. This is important. His second best option is the unreachable side. If you happen to own Blades of Lightcone, make sure to unequip it and put it on Mydei instead. It's not as great as Signature Lightcone, but it is still an amazing option on him. The crit rate can be useful on him if you have bad substats, because Mydei can easily achieve 71% crit rate without any substats plus this Lightcone. Your third Lightcone option, which can be purchased from the Herta shop, is going to be Ninja Record Sound Hunt. This Lightcone increases the wearer's max HP by 24%, and when the wearer loses or restores HP, their crit damage is increased by 36% that lasts for 2 turns. Sound Hunt is perfect for you free-to-play players out there. Mydei equipped with this Lightcone has his max HP increased by a huge amount and easily achieves crit damage since Mydei is always losing and gaining HP. I highly recommend this option since it's available to everyone. Now, if you're really desperate for Lightcones as a new player, Collapsing Sky is an okay option. The Lightcone increases the wearer's basic attack and skill by 40%, making the Lightcone a good alternative until you can get Sound Hunt or his signature Lightcone. Now that you've learned everything you need to know about Mydei, let's quickly go over his team comps. His premium team setup includes Sunday, Tribi, and Luocha. However, any other sustained unit can function at an okay level. Tribi is truly the perfect support for any AoE DPS, and Mydei is no exception. Sunday is another good addition to the team due to the large crit damage buffs he provides. Basically, his entire job is to give a lot of stats to Mydei as well as advancing him to take more actions. Alternative units over Sunday include Sparkle, Robin, and Bronya. The action advance is extremely helpful on Mydei since it helps him generate his ultimate much more faster. If you're running any of those alternative options I mentioned, including Sunday, be sure to run them at hyperspeed. The more actions your units take, the more they can drag up Mydei with them. Luocha is finally relevant again, especially for this comp. Mydei needs a lot of healers. Like, when I mean a lot, I mean that even using 2 healers is worth it on him if you don't have the proper setup. Luocha's healing is as fast as Mydei losing his HP. He gives amazing healing multipliers and good emergency healing. Alternative healers worth mentioning include Linksha, Huohuo, Gallagher, and Lynx. For you free-to-play players out there, the Remembrance MC is going to be your only support on your team. The crit damage from the Memo Sprite is useful as well as advancing Mydei's action. On the other hand, your next 2 options on the slot for your team include Gallagher and Lynx, since it is crucial to keep Mydei alive in battle, and without a premium healer to achieve that, that can be kind of hard. And without a premium healer to achieve that, it can be kind of difficult. Now, for my opinion on pulling for him, if you like him, go for it. He's actually a pretty good character. But from a meta perspective, Mydei wants to drain his HP to deal a lot of damage. Therefore, a good healer on your account is actually needed with him. And since I already mentioned Luocha being his best healer, other premium units work too, but they're not as great as Luocha's healing output. I think that without having a good healer on your account, he won't be at his maximum potential, but not unplayable. Obviously, free-to-play options like Gallagher, Lynx, even Bailu can get by, but by that point, you're better off running 2 healers instead. If you made it this far into the video, let me know your thoughts on Mydei and whether you're pulling for him or not. In case I missed anything out, be sure to let me know in the comments below, and with that being said, I'll see you in a bit.